I show 1 o'clock, so I think I'll get us started here. Again, this is Ed Crow. Thanks for those who joined today. Look forward to going over the information today. It's going to be a little longer webinar than we normally do, but again, I think both topics are information you can use, so I think they'll be helpful. Before we get started, a couple quick things. We do these webinars every Wednesday and Thursday. The last couple weeks have been Thursdays only. Next week we will not be doing any because I'm out of town for a week. But traditionally we do these every Wednesday and Thursday at 1 o'clock on various topics. We do record all of these webinars, so if you, for future reference, if you want to attend one but you can't make it, if you just register, the following day you'll get a recording of the webinar. So if you want the information, just register and you can get the recording. If you have questions, please send them into the webinar. I'm not going to answer them while I'm doing it, just simply because I'm not ignoring you. I'm just not smart enough to run the webinar and answer and read the questions at the same time. So I will answer those at the end for you. And having said that, I think I will get us started. Just wasting a little time here because we have a lot of people coming on right now. But again, I think I'll get us started at this point. So today we're going to talk about two topics, 2023 commissions, so that's MA and PDP commissions, and we're going to talk about 2023 AHIP and try to just help you out a little there with some basics on the test for those who haven't taken it. So we're going to help you out in that regard. So we'll talk about 2023 compensation, MAPD, PDP compensation. Go over how commissions are paid. That question comes up a lot. Initial versus true up versus pro rata. When do you get the full? When is it prorated? That's a little confusing, so we will go over that. Talk about renewal fair market value, how the renewal pays in year 2, which with most carriers is as earned, but we'll go over the math. Then we'll get into the AHIP for 2023, talk about the products and carriers requiring AHIP, how you access the course or where you should access the course. There's a million places you can. And then we'll talk a little bit about the course and the testing itself. And again, I have a bunch of people that came on. We do record this webinar, and we'll send the recording out for everybody who registers, and I will answer questions at the end. Before we get started with going through that, I'd just like to review briefly the programs we offer. We have a bunch. So we have a program for every agent that works with us. If they have their Medicare carriers with us, we have a $500 per month program that will reimburse agents up to $500 a month for leads, marketing, advertising. You can use it every month. It never runs out. And if you work with us and have your Medicare carriers with us, you're eligible for the program. You simply send us paid receipts, and you can use whatever company you want for leads, marketing, advertising. As long as it's to generate Medicare business, it's good, and you can do it with us. We have a T65 seminar program. This is our most popular thing. It has worked to a far greater extent than I ever thought. Turnkey program, you got to find the venue, and basically the company will put people in the seats, turning 65 candidates in person at your seminar. And we are running a lot of these countrywide, and we're averaging about 70 prospects per seminar. So tremendous results with the program. I certainly can tell you more about that if you want to know. You have access with us to Connecture, Sunfire, and My Medicare Bot. So you have all three. All three are CRMs, online enrollment. Medicare Bot is the same thing, but it's voice enrollment versus text and email. And all three will be compliant with the new rules and have recording capabilities for January 1st, as of 10/15, basically, for 1/1 effective AHIP business. Can get marketing money from carriers. Right now, we certainly have the ability to get marketing money from Cigna and Humana. That would be above and beyond our $500 a month program. You would just simply need to send me a proposal for that, what you're going to spend money on and who you're going to write. Or if you want, just call us and we can talk to you about it. But there's larger lump sums of marketing co-op available, specifically from those carriers. Others too, but right now we have that quickly available. We do free agent websites for those of you who want a website and don't have one. We can do free call lists. I mentioned that because we get so many people that spend money on call lists when we already pay for the service and can run you DNC compliant lists or lists with addresses. Any state you want. If you want T65s in a given area, we have the same service that you buy them from, so we can run them for you We pay for it, so it doesn't cost you anything. And lastly, we really need, we have certain states where we really need general agencies, MGAs and SGAs. So I'm always open to candidates in multiple states. There's a bunch of states we need them in. Always open to candidates who want to become a GA, MGA, or SGA. We will help you with that whole process, and really need some hubs in certain states specifically. Really would like to have a GA in Georgia. So if I got anybody on the phone from Georgia, give me a call, because we're definitely looking to, we don't have a large GA there, and we're definitely would like to have one. Okay, enough of that. So let's talk, we'll start with commissions first, and we're going to talk about the 2023 compensation. And start with, for those not familiar, commissions are, CMS dictates what the max commission is an individual can make. Of course, remember, if you're a GA, MGA, or SGA contract, it'd be higher than this, but here's the max individual commission that you can make as a street agent. There's 4 buckets. So the national bucket is 601. They all increased again this year. So the national bucket is 601, so that's for new to Medicare, and 301 on the renewal. Buckets have stayed the same. So they put Connecticut, Pennsylvania, and DC in their own category. That is 678 new and 339 renewal. California and New Jersey, same as always. They are the highest. They've stayed that way. Pretty good jump for them. It's 750 initial and 375 commission on the renewal. Puerto Rico and Virgin Islands, initial, it's very low, I know, but 411 and the renewal of 206. And again, this is set by CMS. We have no control over this. It's the most a carrier will give an individual on a street level contract. So those are the commission amounts, max allowable CMS comp for 2023. There is, for those who wonder, Puerto Rico and Virgin Islands, it's low there, the commissions, but there is a huge opportunity there. There are not a lot of agents in those territories at all. I haven't been lucky enough to find somebody who wants to start a big agency there, but there's a lot of money that could be made there for sure. And last but not least, we'll talk about the PDP compensation for 2023. New is going to be $92, renewal is $46. And when I'm talking in a little bit about the rules for new versus renewal versus prorated, the PDPs follow the same rules as the MA plans. Again, if we have questions, please ask in the webinar, and I'm going to answer them for you at the end. So keep in mind when you're writing MA and PDP business during AEP, so AEP business for a 1/1 effective, so stuff you write from 10/15 through December 7th for a 1/1 effective, does not pay out on the normal schedule. The carriers aren't allowed to pay it in like they normally do. They have to pay it out in January. So if you're writing stuff in October 15th, November, you're not going to get paid like normal like you normally would right away with a UHC, an Aetna, an Anthem. You're going to get paid out in January on that business. That's not applicable to med sups. So, you'll see agents who have a good mix of MA and sup business. The nice part about the sup part is it keeps paying like normal because it's not applicable to the CMS rules of not paying out during AEP. So sup business will still pay like normal. Obviously, this is a really good reason to write hospital indemnity plans. Of course, we have GTL. That's a big carrier for us. We have a number of indemnity plans. GTL is the one we write the most. If you don't know how to sell an indemnity plan with an Advantage plan, I have a webinar on that as well. And that's our big seller. We do have a new carrier we're just introduced now called Life Raft. They have hospital indemnity, cancer, critical illness, accident. And what's unique about them is they're approved in all 50 states, and they're in New York as well, which is unique. All on one platform, really nice. You can write everything from one platform, and the commission with them starts at 70%. That's the street. So it's a really good comp level, and they're approved in New York with all those products. So talk about the amounts that you get paid for commission, but how do you know how much you're actually going to get when you write a plan? Well, it depends on the type of sale. So first, when we talk about the max commission amounts, if you're writing somebody who's new to MA, so they have no prior plan history, maybe they're new to Medicare, maybe they're on Medicare A and B only and had nothing else, maybe they're on a group plan and they're just new to Medicare and or new to Part B and are getting a MA plan for the first time, they didn't have a PDP in place, they didn't have another MA in place, you're going to get the full commission we talked about, the full true up, so you get the max commission, and it will not be prorated. So using Connecticut as an example, the max commission this year is $678. You write somebody a new plan, doesn't matter what time of year, you're going to get $678 if it was new to Medicare. And the renewal, I didn't even mention that in here, and I should have. The renewal is going to start January 1. So if you write a T65 for December 1st, you're going to get the full, in Connecticut, for example, same as same example would work in any state, depending on the max commission. But if you write somebody new to Medicare turning 65 in December, you're going to get the full payment, and then the renewal is going to start as earned in January. So you're kind of going to get paid twice on that. So late T65, late new to Medicare business pays you the best as an agent. If you have an unlike plan change, so meaning I guess I have a couple examples here, but I'll use a different one. So let's say somebody is in a supplement in a drug plan, and you write them an MA plan. They're new to Advantage, so you might think, I'm going to get the full commission, but you usually don't in that scenario, because if they had a PDP in place and in a supplement, and you write them an Advantage plan, you're going to get the full commission. You're going to get the initial and the true up, but you're going to get prorated on that. And the reason you get prorated is because they had a PDP in place when you wrote them that Advantage plan. So it's full commission, but subject to pro rata. And again, I'll use Connecticut as the example here. So somebody had a supplement in a PDP, you changed them to an MAPD, so they're new to Medicare Advantage for July 1. It's going to be the full commission, but it's going to be prorated. So they're going to prorate it by the number of months they were enrolled. So in this scenario, they're only enrolled for 6 months. So you're going to get full commission, but prorated by half the year. So 678 times 0.50, you're going to get 339 on that case because it's prorated. But the renewal will start in January. I think that's the one we overlook a lot, and I get a lot of those questions. Hey, this person was new to Advantage. Why didn't I get paid the full commission? Most likely because they had a PDP when you wrote them, and then it gets prorated. Obviously, if you wrote that case for January, there's no pro rata because they're going to be enrolled for a full 12 months. But in this scenario, you rate somebody like that for December 1, and they had a PDP in place, you're only getting 1/12 of the new commission. And then last but not least, or last and least, I should say, you have same plan changes. So that's an MAPD to an MAPD. So they have an Advantage plan in place. You write them a different company's Advantage plan or a different plan with that company. You're going to get the renewal rate only. So you don't get the true up. You're just getting half the commission, and they're going to prorate it. So if you think about Connecticut, for example, and the renewal is $339 and it's prorated, we'll use the example of somebody that you write for April 1st. You switch them from Advantage to Advantage. You write them for April 1. You're going to get the renewal rate, $323. They're enrolled basically for 3 quarters of the year, so it's going to be times 0.75, 9 months of enrollment. You're going to get $254. So pro rata comes into play a lot, and I think that's the thing that people overlook the most often. Fair market value, all that is the renewals. Back in the day when I first got started, if the renewal rate, whatever CMS said it was, you'd get paid that renewal, and then 3 years later, if the CMS had increased the commissions on the renewal rate, I was still getting paid the old 3 year ago rate. But now all the carriers do fair market value, meaning all your cases on the books every year that CMS increases the commission, your renewals are going to increase as well. You might have some really old cases on the books with some carriers, and you're still getting the amount you were way back then. That's because they all, at different times, said, yeah, we're going to adjust, going forward, we're going to adjust renewals to the fair market value. But cases you wrote before that, they didn't. They're pretty much all doing fair market value now. But you might have some old UHC cases that they said, well, we're doing fair market value for cases effective this date and later. So you might have some old cases where it's still the old commission amount. Renewals are paid as earned with almost every carrier. So, if you got a $339 renewal, once the renewal hits in January, you're going to start getting paid monthly as earned. So you're going to get monthly payments on your renewals for each case. There are some exceptions to this. Emblem Connecticut is a good exception to that. They advance the renewals, so you won't get as earned with them. You'll get an advance when your renewals pay. I already mentioned about how new to MA cases late in the year pay you more, and I use that December 1 example. Use California, for example. You're rated December 1 new to Medicare. They didn't have a previous plan. You're going to get $750, and then your renewal is going to start a month later in January. It's going to be as earned with most carriers. But obviously, that's the best monetary situation and scenario for an agent. I wanted to mention med subs briefly because they don't follow any of these rules. Keep in mind that only Advantage plans in Part D are CMS regulated. Supplements are not. They're an insurance product. They're not subsidized or funded, and there's as a result not CMS regulated, so they don't follow the commission rules. So commissions on med subs vary greatly. Those who are in like Connecticut or New York, you're used to like a flat amount on med subs. That's the exception. In most states, it's a percentage, and it's a percentage of the premium, and it ranges from 14 on the very low end to 27, 28 on the high end, depending on the carrier, the state. Some carriers pay a huge advance, up to 15 months advance on that commission. Most of them, they'll pay 9 months. And as I mentioned before, some pay a flat dollar amount. And examples of that are, if you're in New York or Connecticut, Massachusetts or Maine, you're used to supplements being a flat dollar amount. They're not percentage based. They're usually percentage based in all the underwritten states, which those 4 states I listed there are the only 4 that are guaranteed issue at all times. And then lastly, most commissions go down on subs with most companies in year 6 or 7. In the past, those commissions would usually end after 7 years. Now they just go down. And then they go down a little further after year 10. But most of the carriers now are, for new cases, you're right, are lifetime on med sub commissions. They're just go down after year 6 or 7. Final thoughts on commissions is check your commissions. We might try to assume that, the carriers are paying us accurately. They don't, especially initially. General rule is it's time consuming to check commissions, but definitely take the time to check your initial commission. When you first write somebody new or put them on the books for the first time, make sure you get paid in the first place on that case. It's worth your time. Won't call out names here, but we've tracked this, and we found with a lot of carriers it's about 90% accurate. So 1 out of every 10 cases, a lot of times they're not paying. And it's just an error that they correct, but if you didn't notice it, they usually won't correct it on their own. So it's important to check them. Once they're on the books, hitting renewal, usually you don't have a problem then. But so, ideally you'd want to check new and renewal, but I think if, time's short, just check the initial. And as I mentioned, Medicare Advantage commissions are set by CMS, so it limits how much a street level can be paid. However, if you're a GA, MGA, or SGA, you get paid money above street. I have a webinar on that where I go through the details. I won't today because of the length of this webinar, but I have that information available. Certainly, you could just call our office and ask for the webinar, or you can go if you Google youtube.com Crow and Associates. All our webinars are on YouTube, so you can find it that way too if you want. Chargebacks, rapid disenrollment. So the key thing with a rapid disenrollment is if your case terminates, doesn't stay on the books into the 4th month, you're not going to get a prorated chargeback. You're going to get charged back everything. It's going to be a rapid. That's the difference. And I used to say to people, rapid disenrollment, they got to stay enrolled for 3 months, but they don't. If they disenroll at the end of the 3rd month, it's going to be a rapid. They got to get into the 4th month to avoid a rapid disenrollment. So if you put somebody on the books and after 3 months they've canceled, you're going to get charged back the whole amount. If they make it into month 4 and cancel at the end of the 4th month, you're still going to get charged back, but you're going to get prorated charge back, so you'll keep 4/10 of the commission. And chargebacks you're not rapid disenrolled or charged back when you initiate the plan change as the agent. Okay, that's it for the commission section. Hopefully that was helpful. If we have questions, certainly, like I said, I'll get to those in the end for you. But for now, what I want to do is move on to Medicare Advantage AHIP certification, rather. Sorry, we get on the right slide. Here we go. So we'll talk about AHIP. So we'll go over who needs AHIP, accessing the certification, changes to the course and review questions, strategies for the modules and exams, and then what to do once you passed. Some of this information I'm basing on last year's AHIP test, but I've been told that not much has changed this year, so this should be pretty consistent. So what's AHIP stand for? Not that you might necessarily care, but it's America's Health Insurance Plans, and they're a private organization, and they just had enough foresight to come up with a training course that all the carriers adopted. So just good timing and smart business on their part, I guess. So most of the Medicare Advantage and Part D companies have made the AHIP annual certification a requirement. So to sell their MA, MAPD, and PDPs, to be certified to sell or ready to sell, you have to have AHIP. So basically, for those who are new, you've got to have AHIP passed, and you've got to do the specific carrier, each carrier certification, in order to sell that company for the year. There is a trend developing by the companies, it seems, and it's developed a little more this year, where if you've taken AHIP and passed it, the certification for the carrier is really now just review the information and sign an addendum saying, yes, I reviewed it. So carriers are going to a system where you've already passed AHIP, so they're not giving you a test. You just have to review their product-specific information and sign off that you have reviewed it. Humana is an example of that, and there's some more for this year that will be doing the same thing. So hopefully that trend continues, because it gets tough. If you have 12 different carriers, you got to do AHIP and then 12 certs. So it's nice when they just let you review and sign off. So you need AHIP to sell MA, MAPD, PDP cost plans. Cost plans are only in certain states. Private fee-for-service, which was really popular a few years ago, but seems to have faded away a bit. And then MSA plans, which there are still some MSAs out there, but not too many. One exception to all of this is UHC. Believe it or not, United Healthcare, you can sell their Advantage in Part D without AHIP. If you take United's cert and complete it, you can be ready to sell. They do not require AHIP. They're basically the only carrier that way. They don't require it. And MedSups don't require AHIP certifications either. And just to be different, I think UHC is the exception to that rule as well. So UHC doesn't require AHIP in order to sell their Advantage in Part D, but UHC is one of the only carriers that requires that you do a certification every year in order to sell their supplements. So they're a little different in that regard. There is a strategy for those who don't want to take AHIP. What they will do often for those who don't want to take it is, if UHC is good in their area, they will take the UHC cert, because UHC doesn't require AHIP. That way they can sell UHC's MAs and PDP plans, and then they'll just contract with a variety of supplements, because they don't require AHIP or certifications except for UHC. But if you take their cert for the Advantage plans, the supplement's built right in there, so you'll be ready to go on their supplements too. So that is a strategy we do see some agencies use if they want to offer an MA plan but don't want to have them and their people take AHIP. So you'll be able to access the AHIP certification on June 20th. That's when it's available. For those who are just getting contracted, if you're getting contracted now, you might as well wait till June 20th and take the AHIP, because that's good for the rest of the year and next year. Like, you wouldn't at this point want to take 2022 AHIP. That's just overkill. You're taking it for no reason, basically. Just at this point, wait till June 20th. Take the 2023 AHIP, and you're good for the rest of the year. You can take the test through the AHIP site, so ahipmedicaretraining.com, or you can take it through the carrier certification sites. Now, if you take it through the AHIP site, it's $175. That's the one that will be available on June 20th. However, if you want to wait just a few days, you can take it through the carrier certification sites, and then you get the discount. So through the carriers, it's $125, versus if you take it through AHIP, it's $175. There are some companies that will pay for the course or let you take it at no cost if you meet their sales requirements. I think the Aetna Front Runner is probably the best example of that. You sell X amount of cases the previous year, they'll waive your fee for AHIP. And there's a couple other companies that do that as well. So when you take AHIP, it auto-completes some of the prerequisites for the carrier certification. So the reason to take it through the carrier is not only for the reduction in cost, but also with some of the carriers, if you take AHIP through them, it'll complete some of the prerequisites for the courses on that carrier-specific cert, and then that way there's a couple left certs courses you have to do in the cert. If you take AHIP through the carrier, make sure you do the AHIP module first, though, because if you go and don't do AHIP and do the certification, you'll have to do all the courses. If you do AHIP first, it'll auto-complete some of the courses for you. And then when you go through the company's cert, it routes you, as you go through there, it's coded, but it routes you right to the AHIP cert site, and that way you get the discount on the cost of AHIP. But you're still taking the normal AHIP. So if you're accessing the certification through a UHC, you must log in as an individual, not an agency. That gets tricky. UHC is a little tricky. So you got to do it as an individual, not an agency. And for some reason, they might change this. This is the only thing I don't know if it'll be the same for 2023. You have to click the Not Started tab to access the course, and it's not blatantly obvious. But when you click the Not Started tab, it'll route you to the AHIP site. And just know if you haven't accessed AHIP since 5/10 of 21, you'll need a new password. And it's got to be 12 characters, which is crazy. So the courses in AHIP, once you get in there to take it, it's the same general setup. It's not going to. I was told it's not changing this year. 5 modules. You've got the overview of basics, eligibility, benefits, health plans, PDP review, marketing, rules, and enrollment guidance. Same thing. 50 question test. You got to have a minimum of 90% score to pass. Once you pass that, you think you're done, but you're not. You still have to take the 3 other smaller courses: the non-discrimination, the FWA, compliance, and the general compliance. And those tests are 10 questions each. They're pretty easy, and you only need a 70 on those. So you do the main AHIP, that's the hard one. Not hard, but that's the bigger test. Need a 90. Then when you're done, just remember to do the 3 other tests in there to complete the course. So all the questions on AHIP are multiple choice. When you buy AHIP, you get 3 attempts. If you fail 3 times, then you can buy it again and get 3 more attempts. The problem with that is if you fail 3 times, there are some companies that won't let you sell for the year, even if you buy it again and pass on the 4th try, for example. So you really need to pass it within the first 3 attempts, or you're going to have trouble with some of the carriers. And you'll say, well, I bought it the 2nd time, I passed it on the 5th try, and they're going to say, that's great, but you can't sell for this coming year. So the format, I'm told, will stay the same. At the end of each module, they give you review questions. It's really important to answer the review questions and know the right answers and remember them, because almost all of the review questions are now the test questions. And they're worded, I said, very similarly, and they're worded exact in most cases. So the review questions at the end of each module, those will be the questions on the 50-question test, and they'll be worded almost exactly the same. So you get the answers after you take each module. So you take the module, it gives you sample questions. Those will be the questions on the test. Answer them. If you answer them wrong, it'll give you the right answer. Once you then get done with the modules, you take the 50-question test. You have 2 hours to complete that. The questions, I'm told, I'm basing this off last year, but I'm told they're going to be very straightforward, just like they were last year. The test was easier last year than the years prior. So you shouldn't have a problem with it. If you've studied the sample questions, you can pass the test basically just on the sample questions. Because in most cases, there's enough of those questions are the sample questions where you could pass it just answering those right. Once you pass, remember to take the non-discrimination, the FWA, and the general compliance. You can't forget those. And then lastly, those who took the test and passed it last year, you don't have to go through modules 1 through 3. So when you click through, if you want, because the modules are fairly long, if you passed last year, you can go into AHIP and just go through modules 4 and 5, and it's going to let you take the test. You can skip 1 through 3. So you go through 4 and 5, you click on Take the Review, and you can take the test. So if you want to skip modules 1 through 3, that's fine, but I'd say just to click on them and save the PDF of them on your computer, which you're allowed to do. That way you have, because they're going to still test you on modules 1 through 5, but if you've taken it, passed it last year, you only have to go click through 4 through 5. But I'd say to click on each one just so you can save the PDF on your computer of each module. Because it's an open book test, you can use that later on when you're taking the test. There were some odd, tricky concepts and questions last year. I assume it'll be the same this year. One tricky one is that it's a question about original Medicare, and the answer is there's no cost for preventative. Medicare doesn't cover much when it comes to an annual physical, so it's kind of a trick question in my mind. But the answer is, if you see that, is there a cost for preventative with original Medicare? No. It's just that I guess they're not looking at the details because original Medicare covers very little on an annual physical. But they talk about at-risk beneficiaries. That just means if a population or a person is designated at risk, their plan cannot be changed. More and more people are being given that designation. I'm not sure of their criteria, but if an enrollment change gets blocked, it's because they're considered an at-risk beneficiary. There's another question on there. It says it was, and I'm sure it'll be on there again this year. You called in August and the person's Medicare eligible in November. So they talked to you, they called you in August, they're eligible in November. And the answer is wait until October 1st. Didn't make much sense to me because I should have said when they called in August, they were turning 65. The answer is not to write them in August. It's to write them October 1st, and I guess that way they can see what the plans are going to look like in January. Anyway, I thought it was a tricky question. Something to remember, dialysis, it's for a 4-month wait to get Medicare if you need dialysis if you're not on Medicare. And private fee-for-service is 15% balance billing. Just some random stuff that might help you get one extra question right. And again, that can be the difference between an 88 and a 90. So the strategy to use for the modules and exams is to download the PDF of each module before starting it and save it. You really need to do that. I know people will print every module out. You don't need to do that. You can save yourself a lot of money on ink. Just download it and save it to your computer, to your desktop if you want. The button to do that is on the right, and it'll allow you to save the entire module, and then you can use Control F to search for things you need answers to later on. Biggest one I get is read the test question well. I think a majority of the time people that get questions wrong on AHIP is because they're not reading it. They're not taking their time to read it. They're just half reading it, and then they really know the answer. They just aren't reading the question. Use a reliable computer and internet. I can't tell you how many times people say to me, I was almost done and I lost my internet connection without finishing. If that happens, it's going to count as a fail. So make sure you have a reliable internet connection when you're taking the test. Okay, so you take the test, you pass it. Once you're done, you're going to click on the transcript button, save the PDF of your course completion certificate. You're going to click on Medicare Course Home button and transmit your results to other carriers. Most carriers are in AHIP, so when you've passed it, regardless of what carrier certification portal you took it through, you're in AHIP, so when you pass it, the test, you're going to be able to transmit the results of that test to the various carriers. They will list them. All the carriers that you're contracted with, they will list them, and you can click transmit on each one of them, and it will transmit your results to them. But you want to save your PDF of the course completion certificate because there are still some carriers who make you upload the course completion because they're not on AHIP and you can't transmit to them, or sometimes you transmit to them and they say they never got it. So make sure to keep the PDF showing you passed. Let's see. Okay. And click on the transmit results button for each carrier. It's not just one button. You got to click on each specific one. There's a C credit option in AHIP. Just my opinion. I don't think it's worth it. It costs $30. It did last year. I wasn't told if that's changing or not this year. But you only get 5 to 8 credits depending on the state you're in. So $30 for 5 to 8 credits isn't great in my opinion. I think if you need to meet your CE requirement, it's better just to go on WebCE or one of the other online vendors. And for about the same cost, you can get all your credits for the state. Just my opinion. I'm sure many of you have seen there is a NAHU certification. People are asking me if that's a replacement for AHIP, and in my opinion, it's not, because it doesn't have all the carriers, or it doesn't as of today anyway. Maybe they will once we start doing the certs. But if they don't have all the carriers, then it doesn't really make sense, because you don't want to have to take NAHU's cert and AHIP. So I think right now it's AHIP, unless NAHU announces that they have all the carriers. And lastly, you still need to complete the carrier's individual cert in order to be ready to sell, even though you took AHIP. This one comes up a lot, and this is for agencies. So if you're an agency and your commissions are paying to the agency, so Ed Crow owns Crow and Associates, and I want all my commissions and all my agents' commissions to pay to Crow and Associates, let's say, or I just want overrides from my agents to pay to Crow and Associates. Crow and Associates has to be licensed, and the principal of Crow and Associates needs to be certified. So if I attach myself as the principal of Crow and Associates, I need to have my certification in order for Crow to get paid. It cannot get paid unless the principal of the agency is certified. It's just something to pay attention to. Oftentimes you get agency owners, they no longer are selling, they just own the agency, and that always causes a problem, because then that owner who listed themselves as the principal in the contract, they need to do their certs in order for that agency to get paid overrides or anything for that matter regarding MA and PDP. All right, I already talked about the MedSup thing, and there we go. We're done. I appreciate you hanging in there with me. I know that was a long one. Usually I keep them shorter than that, but appreciate you being on today. I hope it was helpful. Let's see if we have any questions. And if we do, I will try to answer them. Okay. So question is there a magic number where one becomes less likely to sell more and also properly service the existing client base? That's a really good question. Actually, let me go to that's a really good question. It's different for different people. I know I started struggling. Once I got around 600 clients, I had a lot of trouble. And I slowed my sales down a lot at 600. I kicked and clawed and fought it, but when I finally hired some help, I thought to myself, well, I'm going to not make as much now because I got to pay somebody, but lo and behold, they helped me a ton with my existing clients, and I started writing more business again. So actually it was profitable for me. So for me, it was 600 clients. It might be different for some people. I know an agent that has I think he's got 1,100 clients, and he does it all himself. I don't know how he doesn't lose his mind. But I guess my answer is it's different for different people. For me, it was about 600. And when I hired help, it was life-changing for me. Are there study guides for the first-time AHIP certification test takers? No. You buy the course, and you've got everything you need right there to study. You got the sample questions. You really don't need anything else. If you look at the sample questions, answer them and know the answers, and study the guide well, you'll pass. Somebody said, is it still true if you've taken AHIP previously, you only have to sit through the last 3 modules even though you are tested on all 5? Well, close. If you've taken AHIP and passed the year before, you only have to take modules 4 and 5, so only 2 of them. You don't have to take 1, 2, and 3. You just take 4 and 5, and then you'll take the test, and as you said correctly, the test will be on all of the information. So you want to save those modules on your computer. Oh, and then you said, never mind, question answered in slides. Okay, no problem. Next question. If an agent, and this is the last one I have, if an agent retires and wants to continue receiving commissions, they have to do AHIP and carrier certs, right? Right. So if an agent retires, that's one of the flaws with an MA and PDP book. Agent retires, they want to continue getting commissions. Yeah, they got to be certified. Supplements, obviously, you don't have to do that. But indemnity and various life, all that kind of stuff. But with Medicare, you do. Good questions. I think that's all we have. So if that's it, well, I appreciate everybody coming on today. Truly do. Thanks for your time. There will not be a webinar next week, but we certainly will have one the week after. And I hope everybody has a great weekend. Thank you.